For the next 3 days, Maylin kept her promise. At precisely 1:15, she would slip away from her cleaning cart, make her way down to the lobby, and play the grand piano for 15 precious minutes of her half-hour break. The first day Zoe didn't show up. Maylin told herself it was for the best. The girl had probably returned to school and forgotten all about their brief encounter. But on the second day, just as Maylin was about to finish playing, she spotted a familiar navy blazer hovering near the entrance. Zoe stood hesitantly by the revolving doors, as if unsure whether to approach or run away. Maylin smiled and nodded slightly toward the empty space beside her on the bench. Zoe crossed the lobby with quick, nervous steps and sat down. "I didn't think you'd really be here," Zoe admitted. "I said I would be," Maylin replied simply, continuing to play softly. They sat in comfortable silence for the remaining minutes of Maylin's breakfast panorama. Just before she had to leave, Zoe spoke again. "My math teacher called my dad yesterday about me skipping class." She twisted the strap of her expensive leather backpack. "He was actually worried. Asked where I was, and what did you tell him?" Maylin asked. Zoe shrugged. "That I needed some air." He didn't push it. Now on the third day, Zoe was already waiting when Maylin arrived at the piano. This time the girl looked slightly better. Her uniform was neater, her hair brushed into a smooth ponytail, her eyes clear. "Can you teach me to play that song?" Zoe asked without preamble. Maylin blinked in surprise. "The lullaby? You want to learn it?" Zoe nodded eagerly. "Mom tried to teach me piano for years, but I always complained about practicing. Now I wish—" Her voice trailed off. "That you'd listened more," Maylin finished gently. "I understand. My son is the same with cooking. I keep trying to teach him my grandmother's recipes, but he's more interested in video games." "You have a son?" Zoe asked, seeming surprised that Maylin had a life beyond the hotel. "Yes, Jen, he's 14. Maylin smiled proudly. "Very smart. Wants to be an engineer someday." "Cool," Zoe said. Then, looking down at the piano, "So will you teach me?" Maylin glanced at her watch. 15 minutes wasn't much time for a lesson, but the hope in Zoe's eyes was impossible to ignore. "Okay, let's start with the right hand melody, like this." She played a simple sequence of notes. "You try." Zoe's attempt was clumsy but earnest. For the next few days, they fell into a routine. Maylin would play for 5 minutes, then spend 10 teaching Zoe the lullaby. The girl was a quick learner, despite her protests that she wasn't musical. What neither of them knew was that their daily meetings had caught someone's attention. The hotel's security cameras fed into a system monitored not just by the security office, but also by the executive offices of Reynolds International on the top floor of the building. And Jackson Reynolds, who had made discreet inquiries after seeing his daughter at the piano that first day, now watched the daily interactions with growing interest. "Who did you say the employee was again?" he asked his assistant Wei as they observed the fuzzy security footage. "Maylin Chen, sir. She's been with the hotel for almost 6 years. Started as a laundry attendant, moved up to housekeeping, single mother. No complaints against her. Always on time. Works double shifts on weekends." Wei read from the personnel file he'd been instructed to obtain. Jackson stroked his chin thoughtfully. "And she has no idea who Zoe is? That she's my daughter?" "None, sir. According to what we can gather, they met by chance when your daughter came here instead of going to school last week." Jackson watched as his daughter laughed at something the housekeeper said. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen Zoe laugh. Not since before his wife died. "Don't tell anyone about this, Wei, and don't intervene. I want to see where this goes." Wei nodded, though his expression suggested he had reservations about the wisdom of letting his boss's teenage daughter spend time with a random hotel employee. "Sir, if I may, should we run a more thorough background check on Ms. Chen, just to be safe?" Jackson waved away the suggestion. "The hotel already does background checks on all employees. And look at them, Wei." He gestured to the screen where Maylin was patiently guiding Zoe's hands on the piano keys. "Does that look like something I should be worried about?" Wei had to admit it didn't. Meanwhile, down in the lobby, Zoe was growing frustrated with a difficult passage of the song. "I can't get it," she exclaimed, hitting a sour note for the third time. "You're rushing," Maylin said gently. "Music needs space to breathe. Like this." She demonstrated again, her fingers flowing smoothly over the keys. "It's hopeless. I'm terrible at this," Zoe grumbled, the self-doubt of adolescence clouding her face. "No, you're learning," Maylin corrected. Nobody plays perfectly right away. It took me years to master this song. Years? Zoe looked horrified. I don't have years. Maylin laughed. Why not? Are you going somewhere? The question seemed to catch Zoe off guard. I don't know. I guess not. She looked down at her hands. It's just, everything feels temporary now. Like nothing's worth starting because, what if you lose it? Maylin finished softly. Like you lost your mom? Zoe nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Maylin took a deep breath. This wasn't just about piano lessons anymore. After my grandmother died, I stopped playing for almost 2 years. It hurt too much. Every note reminded me that she was gone. What made you start again? Zoe asked Chen. He was just a baby then. One night he wouldn't stop crying no matter what I did. I was exhausted, working 2 jobs, barely sleeping. I felt like I was failing at everything. Maylin's voice grew quiet with the memory. In desperation, I started humming grandmother's lullaby. He instantly calmed down. And something inside me, it shifted. I realized that by not playing, I wasn't honoring her memory. I was burying it. Zoe was silent for a long moment. Then she placed her fingers back on the keys. Show me again? By the end of the week, Zoe could play a simplified version of the lullaby. Her face glowed with accomplishment when she made it through the entire piece without a mistake. I did it, she exclaimed. You did, Maylin agreed, feeling a warm pride that surprised her. You're a natural. Can we try something new next week? Zoe asked eagerly. Maylin was about to answer when a sharp voice cut through their celebration. Ms. Chen. A word. Please. Mr. Wilson stood a few feet away. His thin lips pressed into a disapproving line. Maylin's heart sank. She'd been so caught up in teaching Zoe that she hadn't noticed her break had ended 10 minutes ago. I'll be right there. Mr. Wilson, she said, standing quickly. Now, Miss Chen. His tone left no room for argument. Maylin turned to Zoe. I have to go. I'll see you Monday? Zoe nodded, looking worriedly between Maylin and the stern manager. As Maylin followed Mr. Wilson toward the staff area, she knew she was in trouble. 3 write-ups meant termination, and she already had one from last month when Chen had been sick and she'd been late to work. She couldn't afford to lose this job, not with rent due and Chen's asthma medicine costing more each month as he grew. Ms. Chen, I've been more than patient with your extracurricular activities, Mr. Wilson began once they were in his cramped office. But this hotel is not a music school, and you are not paid to give lessons to teenagers who should be in school. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson, it won't happen again. No, it won't, because from now on, you'll be assigned to the 10th floor exclusively. No more lobby access during your shifts. Maylin's heart sank. The 10th floor was the furthest from the lobby, with the largest suites that took the most time to clean. And with no lobby access, she wouldn't be able to see Zoe anymore. Please, Mr. Wilson, just one more chance. I promise I won't be late again. This isn't about being late, Ms. Chen. It's about knowing your place. His cold eyes appraised her. Unless you'd prefer I terminate your employment entirely. No, sir, Maylin whispered. The 10th floor is fine. Good, you'll start there tomorrow. That will be all. As Maylin turned to leave, Mr. Wilson added, Oh, and Ms. Chen, if I see you near that piano again, you'll be looking for a new job. Understood? She nodded, blinking back tears of frustration. That evening, as Maylin walked to the bus stop, she wondered how she would explain to Zoe that their piano lessons were over. The girl had finally begun to open up, to move beyond her grief. It wasn't fair to either of them. What Maylin didn't know was that Zoe was at that very moment sitting in her father's home office, nervously watching him read through a stack of papers. Dad, she ventured, can I ask you something? Jackson looked up surprised. Zoe rarely sought him out these days, especially in his office. Of course, sweetheart. What is it? Do you know the piano player at your hotel? The lady who works there? Jackson set down his papers, choosing his words carefully. I believe I've heard about her, yes. Have you been visiting the hotel? Zoe nodded, waiting for the lecture about skipping school. Instead, her father simply asked, And why is that? She plays this song. It reminds me of Mom. Zoe twisted her hands in her lap. She's been teaching me to play it. Has she? Jackson leaned forward, genuinely interested. And how's that going? Good. I mean, I'm not great or anything, but... Zoe's face brightened slightly. I really like it. I was thinking maybe I could start lessons again. For real this time. Jackson felt a lump form in his throat. His late wife, Grace, had tried for years to nurture Zoe's musical talents with limited success. Now somehow this housekeeper had accomplished what private tutors couldn't. "I think that's a wonderful idea," he said softly. "Really?" Zoe looked surprised at his easy agreement. "Really?" Jackson hesitated, then added, "You know, your mother would be very proud of you." Zoe's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time in a long while they weren't entirely sad tears. "Thanks, Dad." As Zoe left the office, Jackson picked up his phone and called the hotel manager. He had a very specific request about a certain employee named Mei-Lin Chen. Monday morning arrived with a heavy downpour that matched Mei-Lin's mood perfectly. The bus was late. Her umbrella had turned inside out in the wind, and now she was heading to her new assignment on the 10th floor, far away from the lobby piano and Zoe. "Ms. Chen." The voice startled her as she stepped into the service elevator. Mr. Wilson stood there, clipboard in hand, looking as displeased as ever. "There's been a change in your assignment." Mei-Lin's stomach tightened. Was she being fired after all? "You're needed in the presidential suite today. The guest has specifically requested you." "Me?" Mei-Lin couldn't hide her surprise. "Why would anyone ask for me?" Mr. Wilson's mouth pinched as if he'd bitten into something sour. "Apparently you made quite an impression on someone. The guest is a VIP, extremely important to the hotel. You will provide exceptional service, understood? No mistakes." "Yes, sir." "Of course." The presidential suite occupied the entire top floor of the East Wing. In 6 years, Mei-Lin had cleaned it exactly twice. Most days it sat empty, waiting for visiting celebrities or foreign diplomats willing to pay the astronomical nightly rate. When the elevator doors opened directly into the suite's private foyer, Mei-Lin stepped out cautiously, pulling her cleaning cart behind her. The space was larger than her entire apartment, with soaring ceilings, marble floors, and floor-to-ceiling windows, showcasing the city skyline through the rain. "Hello?" she called softly, not wanting to disturb anyone who might be present. No answer. She moved further into the suite, passing through the elegant living area with its cream-colored sofas and crystal chandelier. The bedroom door stood ajar, but a quick peek showed an empty, perfectly made king-sized bed. Then she noticed something out of place. A gleaming black grand piano sat in the corner of the living room, where normally a dining table would be. It was far more impressive than the lobby piano, with Steinway & Sons emblazoned in gold across its lid. As Mei-Lin approached it, a note caught her eye. Placed on the music stand was a folded piece of hotel stationery, with her name written on it. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. "Ms. Chen, please make yourself at home. The piano is here for you. Your only task today is to play a friend." Mei-Lin looked around the empty suite, confused. Was this some kind of joke? A test from management? She should be cleaning, not playing piano in a guest suite. She could lose her job. She backed away from the piano and began unpacking her cleaning supplies. She would do her job properly, ignore the strange note, and the door to the suite opened and Mei-Lin spun around, relief washing over her at the thought of getting an explanation. But it wasn't Mr. Wilson or hotel security or even a guest, it was Zoe. "You're here." The girl's face lit up. She wore her school uniform but carried a backpack that suggested she'd come directly from class. "Dad said you might be." "Your dad?" Mei-Lin repeated slowly, the pieces beginning to click into place. Zoe nodded, dropping her backpack on one of the plush sofas. "He arranged everything. Isn't the piano amazing? It's way better than the one in the lobby." "Zoe," Mei-Lin said carefully, "who exactly is your father?" Before Zoe could answer, the suite door opened again. A tall man in an impeccably tailored suit walked in, followed by Wei, who Mei-Lin recognized as one of the hotel executives she occasionally saw striding through the lobby. "Ms. Chen," the man said, extending his hand. "Jackson Reynolds. I believe you've been teaching my daughter to play the piano." Mei-Lin's mouth went dry. Jackson Reynolds, owner of Reynolds International, the parent company of not just this hotel but the entire chain. Her ultimate boss. The billionaire whose face occasionally appeared on business magazines at the checkout stand. "Mr. Reynolds," she managed, taking his hand automatically. I'm so sorry. I didn't know Zoe was your daughter." "I never meant to—" "Please," he interrupted gently. "You have nothing to apologize for. In fact, I'm the one who should be thanking you." Mei-Lin blinked in confusion. Jackson turned to his daughter. "Zoe, Why don't you show Ms. Chen what you've been practicing? Zoe grinned and bounded toward the piano, patting the bench beside her. Come on, I've been working on it all weekend. Dad got me sheet music and everything. Still stunned, Maylene sat down next to Zoe, who immediately began playing a somewhat shaky but recognizable version of the lullaby. She made it through almost the entire piece before hitting a wrong note. But instead of getting frustrated as she had before, she simply laughed and tried again. That's wonderful, Zoe, Maylene said when she finished. You've been practicing. Every day, Jackson confirmed, watching his daughter with an expression Maylene couldn't quite read, pride mixed with something like wonder. It's all she wants to do now. We even moved her mother's old piano from the storage room back to the living room. Zoe beamed at her father's words, then jumped up. I'm going to get my music books from my backpack. As she dashed off to the sofa where she'd left her things, Jackson moved closer to Maylene. Miss Chen, I owe you an explanation, he said quietly. I've been watching your interactions with my daughter for the past week. Maylene tensed. The security cameras, he nodded. I hope you can forgive the invasion of privacy. I needed to understand what was happening. You see, since my wife died, Zoe has been... He paused, searching for the right words. Lost, angry, withdrawn. We've tried therapists, counselors, grief support groups. Nothing helped. He gestured toward Zoe, who was rummaging through her backpack. Then suddenly she starts skipping school to come to my hotel and sit with a housekeeper at a piano. And for the first time in over a year, she's talking to me again. She's interested in something. She's present. Maylene's eyes softened. She misses her mother. Terribly, Jackson agreed. As do I. Grace was everything to us both. When she got sick, it happened so fast. Neither of us knew how to move forward without her. The lullaby, Maylene said. It reminds Zoe of her mother? Grace used to play it for her. Not exactly the same as your version, but similar enough that Zoe recognized it immediately. She told me last night that when she heard you playing, it was like her mother was somehow there again. Maylene's throat tightened with emotion. I understand. My grandmother taught me that song. After she died, playing it made me feel close to her again. Zoe bounded back, clutching several music books. Dad got me these yesterday. Can we try something from this one? As Zoe opened a beginner's piano book, Jackson cleared his throat. Miss Chen, Maylene, I have a proposition for you. Maylene looked up, suddenly remembering that she was still on the clock, still wearing her housekeeper's uniform, still technically supposed to be cleaning this suite. What kind of proposition? The hotel has been considering adding a music program for guests. Live piano in the lobby during afternoon tea, that sort of thing. I'd like to offer you the position. Full-time, with benefits, twice your current salary. Maylene stared at him. But I'm not a professional musician. You were a music teacher before, weren't you? He asked. Her eyes widened in surprise. Your personnel file, he explained. It mentioned your previous employment. 5 years teaching music at an elementary school before budget cuts eliminated the program. That was a long time ago, Maylene said softly. Not so long that you've forgotten how to connect with a student. Jackson glanced meaningfully at his daughter, who was excitedly flipping through the music book. You have a gift, Maylene, not just for music, but for teaching, for healing. The offer was beyond anything Maylene could have imagined when she woke up this morning, but something didn't sit right. Was this charity, pity? Mr. Reynolds, please call me Jackson. Jackson, she corrected herself, I appreciate the offer. More than I can say, but I can't accept a position that was created just for me out of gratitude. It's not charity, he said as if reading her thoughts. It's business. This hotel needs what you can offer. Zoe isn't the only one who stops to listen when you play. I've seen the guests lingering in the lobby, delaying their departures to hear just one more song. He smiled slightly. The bar sells 40% more drinks on the afternoons you play. That's not sentiment, Maylene, that's profit. Before she could respond, Zoe interrupted. Dad, can Maylene come to our house sometimes too? For proper lessons, please? Jackson raised an eyebrow at Maylene. That would be entirely up to Ms. Chen. Maylene felt overwhelmed. This morning she had been worrying about making rent. Now she was being offered a new career and invited to the home of a billionaire. I need some time to think, she said finally. This is all very sudden. Of course. Jackson handed her a business card. Take all the time you need. The position will remain open. Zoe looked disappointed. But you'll still teach me today, right? Since we're both here? Maylene smiled, the first genuine smile she'd felt all day. "Yes, Zoe. Today we can continue our lessons." As they settled at the piano together, Jackson discreetly stepped away to take a call, giving them space. Maylin guided Zoe through a simple exercise, marveling at how quickly the girl learned. "My mom would have liked you," Zoe said suddenly, her fingers stilling on the keys. "She always said music was like a conversation without words. Your mother sounds like a wise woman." She was. Zoe's eyes filled with tears. But they weren't the devastated tears of their first meeting. These were gentler, touched with fond remembrance rather than raw grief. I think she would be happy I'm playing again." Maylin thought of her own grandmother, how proud she would be to know her music was helping this child heal. "I think you're right," she said softly. "Now let's try this next part together." As their fingers moved across the keys in tandem, creating a melody that filled the spacious suite, Maylin realized something important. No matter what she decided about Jackson's job offer, the music had already worked its magic. For both Zoe and herself, it had built a bridge across loss, connecting past to present, grief to healing. And somewhere beyond the rain-streaked windows, beyond the clouds, perhaps two women, a wealthy society mother and a humble immigrant grandmother, were smiling down at the unlikely duet. Bound together by the universal language of music, the bus ride home felt surreal. Maylin sat with Jackson Reynolds' business card clutched in her hand, her mind replaying the events of the day over and over. The grand piano in the presidential suite, Zoe's delight at their reunion, the job offer that could change everything. "Mom, are you okay?" Chen's voice pulled her from her thoughts as she entered their small apartment. Her 14-year-old son sat at their tiny kitchen table, textbooks spread before him, concern etched on his face. He looked so much like his father sometimes, the same serious eyes, the same slight furrow between his brows when he was worried. "I'm fine," she assured him, hanging up her coat. "Just thinking." "About what?" "Where to begin?" She sat down across from him, pushing aside a math worksheet to make space for her elbows. "I was offered a new job today." Chen's eyes widened. "Really? Doing what?" "Playing piano." "At the hotel? Piano? Like professionally?" His surprise was understandable. For years he'd only seen her play their second-hand upright keyboard, a gift from a former neighbor who was moving away. The idea that someone would pay her to do what she'd always done for free for the love of it seemed as fantastical to him as it did to her. "Yes. And teaching, maybe." She took a deep breath. "For twice my current salary." Chen's mouth fell open. "Twice, Mom? That's amazing. You're going to take it, right?" Maylin looked at their apartment, the water stain on the ceiling that the landlord kept promising to fix, the cramped bathroom they shared, the kitchen where they couldn't both stand at the same time. Then she thought of Chen's college fund, still pitifully small despite years of her careful saving. His asthma medication that insurance only partially covered. "I'm thinking about it," she said carefully. "What's there to think about? It's perfect for you." Chen pushed aside his homework entirely now, fully invested in the conversation. "You love playing, and you were a music teacher before." "A long time ago," she reminded him. "So? You're still good. I hear you play when you think I'm asleep." His expression softened. "You play grandmother's songs." Maylin felt a lump form in her throat. "You remember those?" Chen nodded. "Not all of them. But the lullaby. That one I remember. The same lullaby she'd taught Zoe." The circle felt complete somehow. "There's something else," Maylin said. "The man who offered me the job, he owns the hotel. His name is Jackson Reynolds." Chen whistled. "Reynolds International? That Reynolds? You know of him?" "Mom, everyone knows Reynolds International. We studied their business model in economics class. They're huge." Maylin nodded, taking in this new perspective. "His daughter is the one I've been teaching. The girl I told you about, the one who reminded me of you when you were younger. The sad one. With the mom who died?" "Yes." Maylin hesitated. "He's also offered to pay me for private lessons for her." At their home, Chen sat back, his eyebrows raised. "Whoa, I know. So, you'd be working at the hotel playing piano and giving his daughter private lessons." "Maybe, if I accept." Chen studied her face. "What's holding you back?" It was a good question. One she'd been asking herself the entire bus ride home. Why was she hesitating when this opportunity could solve so many of their problems? I'm afraid, she admitted. What if I'm not good enough? It's been years since I taught music professionally, and playing for hotel guests. That's different from playing for myself or for you. Mom. Chen's voice was firm, surprisingly adult. You're amazing. You've always been amazing. You just never had the chance to show it. Her eyes welled up. When had her little boy become so wise? And there's something else, she continued. This feels, I don't know. Like charity? Like Mr. Reynolds is creating a position just for me because I helped his daughter. Chen considered this. Did he seem like the type of guy who does charity for no reason? Maylin thought about Jackson Reynolds' business-like demeanor, the way he'd framed the offer in terms of profits and customer experience. No, she admitted. He's definitely a businessman first. Then maybe he really thinks you'll be good for the hotel. Chen shrugged. Maybe it's both. He's grateful, sure, but he also thinks you'll make him money. Rich people don't get rich by making bad business decisions. Maylin laughed despite herself. When did you get so smart about business? Economics class, he replied with a grin. I pay attention sometimes. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I'll think about it. I promise. Good. Chen returned to his homework. Because I could really use my own bedroom someday. The next morning, Maylin called the number on Jackson Reynolds' business card and accepted the position. 2 weeks later, she played her first official performance in the Golden Leaf Hotel lobby. The grand piano from the presidential suite had been permanently relocated to a small raised platform near the bar, positioned so that the music would flow throughout the main floor. Maylin's new uniform, a simple but elegant black dress instead of the housekeeping gray, still felt strange, as did the curious, sometimes admiring glances from guests who had previously looked right through her. Mr. Wilson, who now technically had no authority over her, kept walking past with a sour expression, as if expecting her to fail spectacularly at any moment. Nervous? A voice asked. Maylin turned to find Wei, Jackson Reynolds' assistant, standing nearby with a clipboard. A little, she admitted. Don't be. Mr. Reynolds wouldn't have offered you this position if he didn't believe in your abilities. Wei checked his watch. You're scheduled to begin in 5 minutes. The afternoon tea crowd is arriving. As Wei walked away, Maylin adjusted the sheet music before her. She'd prepared a 2-hour program of classical pieces and gentle contemporary songs. Nothing too complex or showy for her first day, but music that would create a pleasant atmosphere for the guests. She placed her fingers on the keys and took a deep breath. Then she began to play. The first notes were tentative, but soon muscle memory took over. The music flowed from her fingers as naturally as breathing. She lost herself in the familiar melodies, barely noticing as the lobby filled with guests stopping to listen, hotel staff pausing in their duties, even Mr. Wilson lingering longer than necessary near the reception desk. Halfway through her set, the elevator doors opened and Zoe appeared, still in her school uniform, her face breaking into a wide smile at the sight of Maylin at the piano. Behind her was Jackson, phone pressed to his ear, but his expression softened as he watched his daughter hurry across the lobby to stand near the piano. When Maylin finished the piece, Zoe clapped enthusiastically. Several guests joined in, creating a warm round of applause that made Maylin blush. You're amazing, Zoe said, leaning against the piano. Everyone's listening, it was true. The lobby had grown unusually full for a weekday afternoon. Staff members who normally hurried to their tasks now found reasons to linger. Guests who might have simply passed through on their way to their rooms now sat in the nearby chairs, cocktails in hand, faces relaxed. Can I make a request? Zoe asked. Of course. Our lullaby, please. Maylin smiled and nodded, her fingers finding the familiar melody that had brought them together. As she played, she noticed Zoe mouthing the finger positions to herself, practicing even without a keyboard. Across the lobby, Jackson ended his call and stood watching them, a look of contentment on his face that hadn't been there 2 weeks ago. The businessman's hard exterior had softened, revealing glimpses of the father beneath, a father who was slowly reconnecting with his daughter through the bridge Maylin had unknowingly built. When the song ended, a hush fell over the lobby before the applause began again, stronger this time. An elderly woman approached the piano, eyes misty. That was beautiful, dear, she said to Maylin. It reminded me of something my mother used to play. I haven't thought of that in years. Music has a way of bringing back memories, Maylene replied gently. The good ones, I hope, the woman said with a smile before returning to her seat. After her shift ended, Maylene gathered her things, still buzzing with the success of the day. As she prepared to leave, Jackson approached. You were remarkable, he said. The manager tells me the bar had its highest weekday sales in months. And the front desk has already received comments from guests about how much they enjoyed the music. I'm glad, Maylene said, genuinely pleased. There's something else. Jackson gestured to a discreet envelope on top of the piano. Your first paycheck, including the bonus we discussed. Maylene's hand trembled slightly as she picked it up. Inside was a check for more money than she would have earned in a month of housekeeping. Thank you, she said, tucking it carefully into her purse. No thank you, Jackson replied. You've brought something back to this hotel that I didn't even realize was missing. He hesitated. And to my home as well. Their eyes met in understanding. They both knew he wasn't talking about music alone. Zoe's looking forward to her lesson tomorrow, he continued. The car will pick you up at 5 if that still works for you. Yes, that's perfect. Maylene had arranged for Chen to stay with a neighbor during her evening lessons at the Reynolds home. Chen is excited for me to see your music room. He thinks it must be like something from a movie. Jackson laughed. It's nothing that elaborate, I assure you. Though we did just have the piano tuned. As they parted ways, Maylene felt a sense of rightness settle over her. The path ahead still held challenges, adjusting to her new role, balancing her responsibilities, navigating the complex relationship with the Reynolds family that was neither quite friendship nor simply professional. But for the first time in years, the future looked bright with possibility. Her grandmother had always told her that music could open doors. She'd just never imagined those doors would lead to places like this. That evening, as she and Chen celebrated with a special dinner purchased with her first tip money, Maylene realized that the music had healed more than just Zoe. It had healed her too, her confidence, her sense of purpose, her belief in herself, and somewhere, she was certain, her grandmother was smiling. 6 months passed like the turning pages of sheet music. Spring blossomed into summer and summer mellowed into fall. Maylene's life had transformed in ways she could never have imagined that first day she'd played the lobby piano. For a grieving teenage girl, the Golden Leaf Hotel had become known throughout the city for its afternoon piano performances. Guests began requesting rooms during Maylene's playing hours. Local business people arranged their meetings around her schedule. Even Mr. Wilson had grudgingly admitted that bookings had increased since the music program began. For Maylene and Chen, the changes were more personal. They'd moved from their cramped apartment to a modest but comfortable 2-bedroom condo, closer to Chen's school and the hotel. Chen had his own room for the first time in his life. His asthma medication was covered by Maylene's new insurance, and the college fund that had once seemed like a distant dream was growing steadily. But the most remarkable transformation had occurred in the Reynolds household, where Maylene now spent 3 evenings a week teaching Zoe. Again, but slower this time, Maylene instructed, watching as Zoe's fingers moved across the keys of the beautiful baby grand that had once belonged to her mother. Feel the emotion in the piece. Don't rush through the sad parts. Zoe nodded, her face serious with concentration as she restarted the Chopin nocturne. At 15, she had blossomed into a dedicated pianist with genuine talent. The angry, grief-stricken girl from their first meeting was still there sometimes, in flashes of frustration or quiet moments of sadness, but those moments no longer defined her. Better, Maylene said as Zoe finished. Much better. You're connecting with the music now, not just playing the notes. Zoe beamed at the praise. Do you think I'll be ready for the recital next month? Absolutely. You've been practicing diligently. The recital had been Jackson's idea, a charity event to raise money for arts education in underfunded schools. Zoe would perform alongside other students and professional musicians, including Maylene herself. Dad's invited practically everyone he knows, Zoe said, rolling her eyes but unable to hide her pleasure. He's become so, I don't know, enthusiastic about everything lately. Maylene smiled, thinking of the changes she'd observed in Jackson Reynolds over these months. The stern businessman was still there, taking calls at all hours and flying across the country for meetings. But alongside that version of himself had emerged a father who made time for his daughter's music lessons, who proudly displayed her practice schedule on his office wall, who sometimes sat quietly in the corner of the music room just to listen. "Your father is proud of you," Maylin said, "and grateful that you've let music back into your lives." Zoe's fingers traced a gentle pattern on the piano keys. "Mom would have liked this. Me playing again. You teaching me." She looked up, her eyes clear and honest. "She would have liked you." "I think I would have liked her too," Maylin replied softly. The sound of the front door opening and closing echoed through the house, followed by Jackson's voice calling out, "In the music room," Zoe called back. Jackson appeared in the doorway, still in his business suit but with his tie loosened. "How's the lesson going?" "Excellent," Maylin answered. "Zoe has nearly mastered the Chopin, and her own composition is coming along wonderfully." Pride flashed across Jackson's face. "The one about your mother?" Zoe nodded, suddenly shy. "It's not finished yet." "Play what you have," he encouraged, settling into the armchair in the corner that had become his regular spot. "It's still rough," Zoe warned, but her fingers were already hovering over the keys. The melody that flowed from the piano was simple but deeply moving, a conversation between loss and memory, between grief and healing. Maylin watched as Jackson closed his eyes, listening to his daughter's musical expression of the journey they'd both traveled. When Zoe finished, the room was silent for a long moment. "That was beautiful, sweetheart," Jackson finally said, his voice thick with emotion. "Really? You don't think it's too simple?" "The most powerful music often is," Maylin assured her. "It comes from the heart, not from complexity." As they wrapped up the lesson, Jackson cleared his throat. "Maylin, could you stay for a moment? There's something I'd like to discuss with you." Zoe gathered her music books. "I'm going to practice a bit more before dinner." When she had left, Jackson gestured for Maylin to sit. "I wanted to talk to you about the charity event. Is there a problem?" Maylin asked. "Not at all. Quite the opposite," he smiled. "Ticket sales have exceeded our expectations. We've had to change venues to accommodate the interest. That's wonderful news." "Yes, but it's made me think about something larger." Jackson leaned forward, his expression earnest. "The response has shown there's a real hunger for music education in our community. And that's given me an idea I wanted to run past you." Maylin waited, curious. "I'd like to establish a foundation," he continued. "The Grace Reynolds Foundation for Music Education, named after Zoe's mother. It would provide instruments, lessons, and performance opportunities for children who couldn't otherwise afford them." "That sounds amazing," Maylin said, genuinely moved by the idea. "Grace would have loved that legacy." "She would have," Jackson agreed. "But here's the part that involves you. I'd like you to help run it." Maylin blinked in surprise. "Me? You'd be perfect. You're an experienced music teacher. You understand what it means to face financial barriers to music education, and you've seen firsthand with Zoe how transformative music can be for a child in crisis." "I don't know what to say," Maylin admitted. "I love playing at the hotel, but teaching has always been my true passion." "You wouldn't have to give up the hotel entirely," Jackson assured her. "Perhaps reduced to 2 or 3 days a week. The foundation would be your primary focus with a proper director's salary." Maylin's mind raced with possibilities. Teaching again, helping children discover music just as she had once done, creating opportunities for those who might otherwise never touch a piano or hold a violin. "Could Chen be involved somehow?" she asked. "He's mentioned wanting a part-time job, and though he's not musical himself, he's quite organized." Jackson nodded. "Of course. We could certainly find a role for him, perhaps helping with the administrative side or technology." "Then yes," Maylin said decisively. "I would be honored to help create this foundation." The recital came together beautifully. The elegant concert hall was filled to capacity with a mix of wealthy donors, music lovers, and families of the student performers. Backstage, Maylin adjusted the collar of Chen's suit, bought specially for the occasion, while he fidgeted uncomfortably. "Stop fussing, Mom," he protested. "I look fine. Better than fine," she assured him. "Very handsome." As an usher rather than a performer, Chen would be showing guests to their seats. Though not musical himself, he had embraced the chance to be part of the event, especially after learning that several engineering executives would be in attendance, possible connections for internships in the future. "Nervous?" Maylin asked Zoe, who was pacing nearby in a simple blue dress that had been her mother's. "Terrified," Zoe admitted. "What if I forget the notes?" What if I embarrass Dad in front of all his important friends? You won't, Maylin said firmly. You're ready for this, Zoe. And even if you make a mistake, what matters is how you recover and continue. Music, like life, isn't about perfection, it's about expression. Zoe took a deep breath and nodded. You sound like Mom when you say things like that. The statement, offered so naturally, brought tears to Maylin's eyes. It was perhaps the highest compliment Zoe could give. When it was time for Zoe's performance, the audience fell silent. Jackson, seated in the front row, leaned forward slightly as his daughter took the stage. Maylin watched from the wings, heart pounding as if it were her own child stepping into the spotlight. Zoe settled at the piano, took a steadying breath and began to play, not the Chopin piece they'd practiced for months, but her own composition, now complete. The music filled the hall, telling the story of a girl who had lost her mother, who had found herself again through music, who had rediscovered her father, and gained an unexpected friend along the way. It spoke of grief and joy, of endings and beginnings, of the harmony that can emerge from life's most discordant moments. In the audience, Jackson listened with tears streaming unashamedly down his face. Beside him sat an empty seat, symbolic of Grace's absence, but also, somehow, of her enduring presence in their lives. When Zoe finished, there was a moment of profound silence before the applause began, tentative at first, then swelling to fill the hall. She stood, bowed shyly, and then looked to the wings where Maylin stood. With a small gesture, she beckoned her teacher to join her. Maylin hesitated, but Chen gave her a gentle push forward. Go on, Mom. You deserve this too. As Maylin stepped onto the stage, she felt a sense of completion. The circle that had begun that day in the hotel lobby, when a grieving girl had heard a housekeeping mother play her own grandmother's lullaby, was now somehow complete. Zoe reached for her hand, and they bowed together as the applause continued. In the front row, Jackson stood, his face a mixture of grief and gratitude, loss and love. Later that evening, as the successful event wound down, the three of them, Maylin, Zoe, and Jackson, stood together on the empty stage, looking out at the concert hall. The foundation's off to a strong start, Jackson said. We raised enough tonight to fund music programs in 5 schools. It's just the beginning, Maylin added. Think of all the children who will discover music because of this. Zoe leaned against her father's shoulder, more at ease with him than she had been in years. Mom would be proud of us, wouldn't she? Very proud, Jackson confirmed, his arm around his daughter. Maylin thought of her own grandmother, of the simple lullaby that had started it all, of how music had the power to connect across time and circumstance, across wealth and poverty, across grief and healing. Some might call it coincidence that brought a billionaire's daughter and a housekeeper together at a piano. But Maylin knew better. It was the music that had found them both exactly when they needed it most.